trim removal for access to the cylinders and the pump in an R171 is fairly simple if you know how to do it. So we'll show you every single step. At some points we will fast forward where it gets to be boring, and the more crucial steps I'll explain in more detail. Trim removal takes simple tools, Torx driver set, possibly a trim panel removal tool that's optional, you don't really need it. Small flat screwdriver, 6mm Allen wrench to relieve the pressure in the pump, a pair of pliers for a couple of screws back in here, and you need to create some kind of spacer to let the front of the hardtop rest roughly in this position. Could be back a little bit further. You just want to have gravity do its job, keeping the roof in place. You can go as simple as putting a paper towel roll in here while you're removing the headliner and while you're moving some hoses in the rear. This is a very convenient position for the top to be in while you're tracing hoses back there. Or top hydraulics, well, we just came up with making this tool here while we were filming. It's a 3/4 inch PVC tube that we heated up with a heat gun and flattened the ends. That slides into the front lock and lodges itself nicely at the front of the hardtop. That's fairly stable. We can supply that with a set of cylinders and pump if needed. So let's get to it. The parts we are going to remove are the windshield header and the hinge covers, roll bar cover, storage compartment between the seats, and pull forward the carpet, and then we'll expose a metal plate that needs to be removed for access to the pump. All of these parts need to be removed even if you only replace the front lock cylinder, because you have to fill the pump, and in order to fill the pump you need to get access to the pump. You have to remove all these parts to do that. So if you instead decide to do all 5 cylinders and the pump, there's hardly any more labor. The only thing that you need to do in addition is removing panels out of the trunk. In order to remove the panels out of the trunk, you best put the trunk lid into service position. That is, it first flips back, then you use the blade key to open the trunk lid the regular way. Now normally a trunk lid will stay up in the service position. This particular car has weak gas struts, so we're supporting the rear of the trunk lid with a tube or 2x4, whatever works for you. Let's get to it. If you want to immobilize the top, then you open the fuse panel on the left side, take the cover off, remove fuse number 38, which is a 40 amp fuse. Again, fuse number 38 right here. To remove the headliner, we remove 4 Phillips screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, and after that we pull the panel down. I didn't mention the Phillips screwdriver in my initial lineup of tools, sorry about that. Watch out for these little curved washers that go behind the bolts. Catch them if they come out. They are normally staying in the panel, but they might come out, so watch out that you don't lose them. Next, we pull down the panel. There are some tabs locking the panel into the top of the roof around here, and here I'll show you in a moment when the panel is down. So you want to pull roughly in this position, and again in this position. Now these were already loosened for me, that's why it was easy. When you do it the first time, you may have to pull a little bit harder. So here are these 2 tabs. We also have some tabs in the rear that we'll show you next. There are 5 rivet style tabs in the rear, middle, half middle, side, and you simply have to pull down on these to get the top panel off. So there, it fell down on me because I had loosened it already. And if one of these tabs stayed in here, you just have to pry it out with a screwdriver or with a trim removal tool and put it back into the panel like this. And later on, when you put the panel back in, all you need to do is push everything back into the proper position. The hinge cover is fastened in an interesting way. It has 2 clip-style fasteners that you need to loosen with a screwdriver first. Oops. We'll put that back in. And the way you access these is from behind, reaching under this cover. So again, the clips are on the center inside right behind the hinge here, and on the outside fairly far to the rear. You reach in there with a screwdriver and pull these U-shaped clips forward. That unlatches the rear of the hinge cover. Then you still have 1 tab, a rivet style tab around here, and 1 slide in tab around here. And lastly, there are 2 guides for the speaker. Well, where are they? Down here, so ultimately you have to pull this straight up. Let's show you. Now I have loosened these 2 clips already. Let's see how it comes up. We want to be careful not to break anything. Pulled up, pulled up, pulled up, and pulling up slowly. What's holding me here? Well, I jumped the gun. I should have removed this trim piece first with a Torx T10. So hang in there, we'll take that out quickly. So Torx T10, remove these 2 screws. There we go, trim piece is loose. Now I can pull up my hinge cover, remove the connector for the speaker. Let's see what the trick is to that one. It should pull straight up, but I'm missing something. There we go. And after this, we will remove the Torx bolt for this seat belt. It takes some torque to break it loose at first, and then it comes out easily. Now this is a Torx T45. A Torx T40 may strip on you. Now we pull the whole thing forward, put it in front of the seat, out of the way. Repeat the same thing on the other side. Next we'll remove this roll bar cover. In order to slide the roll bar cover over the roll bar, we need to remove this 9mm bolt here. We accidentally had a 10mm tag on there, so 9mm it is. The same thing on the other side. And then we move on to the next step. If you have the fancy windscreen between the roll bars, that one pulled straight up. Let me show you. Like that, and then we take the two screens off the roll bar. Yet one more step before we can take this roll bar cover off is take off the storage compartment between the seats. We need a Torx T15 to remove two screws here under the loudspeakers. Oh, come on, where is it? Okay, here's one, fell on the floor for me. The other one I've already taken out. This cover flips up. Now you see there's two loudspeakers in here. Just wiggle and pull the connectors off. They are press fit. They simply slide out. You can, if they're hard to pull, you can help a little bit by having a screwdriver or your Torx wrench pulling at the same time. There's yet another connector back here for the light. Same thing, you can help yourself a little bit by using your tool to pull it out. Now we're down to a couple of 10mm bolts. Taking those out. One. Two. Now this assembly should be, let's make sure we have all the wires off. This assembly should be pulling straight up. You see two legs down here that simply go behind here, and this cover slides up. Let's get the speaker out of the way and see if we can't already pull the roll bar cover off. Now this is pretty easy. I have to admit that I loosened some tabs already that I'm going to show you next, so you know where to pull. Let's take this cover off and I'll come closer to the camera to show you the tabs. Two big ones in the middle, and these sliders in the front that mean you have to slide this whole thing up straight. There are also a bunch of little hooks in the rear that you actually have to carefully loosen one at a time. So when this thing is still on here, and imagine it's still hooked in, you pull one after another until they're all released, and then you pull up. Next we need to put the upper foot or so of carpet, pull that forward. In order to do that, we need to remove two upholstery nuts, let's call them that. They're not torqued on there very firmly, so typically you can turn them loose by hand. If you have any trouble with that and you don't want to mar the plastic, then you could instead wrap some paper towel or a rag around it and turn it with a wrench. So let's pull this out here, and of course we need to pull the weather stripping off a little bit so that the carpeted trim piece can now just pull forward. There we go. Next step is removing this panel with its bolts to get access to the pump. There are a bunch of bolts on this panel. Now, I wouldn't go as far as color coding every single one of these because almost all of them are identical. Those are M6 by 15 bolts with a Torx T30 head. There's a total of 30 of these all in this plane. So let me show you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 times 2 makes 30 of these particular bolts that we take out first, and we can put them all in one bin. And then there's a few different ones. The way I do it is I first take all of these out and then take out the few that are different in appearance and length, and I replace them as I put the panel back in. So I take the panel out, put the bolt back in, and that's my easiest way of not getting a whole bunch of bolts mixed up. But you're very welcome to mark them all individually by size and stay organized that way. So let's get started. I'll take 32 bolts out here, or 30. Okay, now that was those 30. Let's do 2 on top here, and we'll do the matching ones on the other side. You notice these are a little longer, it looks like 20 millimeters. Let me set it aside here so I can later put it back into the same spot. And one on the bottom here, that is still a T30, and then we'll move on to the larger Torx wrench in a moment. Notice that this one on the bottom is a tiny short one, hard to mistake. So we'll put these back in after the panel is out so that we don't mix anything up. Meanwhile, I'll get a different Torx driver for these big bolts here. One. Oh, the lower one stays in place. I didn't have to remove that. So there's really only 2 T40s up here. The longer one goes on the bottom, that looks like a 20 or 25 millimeter, where the shorter one, that's 15 millimeters, goes on the top. Next, I'll cut a few zip ties here. Let's see if I really need to do that or if I can just take the panel out. The panel actually does come out, but it would be a little awkward to have it hanging out the side of the door there, so we'll undo some zip ties so that we can get this panel partially separated from the wiring harness and get it out of the way. Okay, got that out of the way, and we'll put the bolts back whence they came from. Let's see, the shorter one, did it go in here? I believe so. Nope, the shorter one went on the bottom here. We had a longer one on top and another longer one on top. Where's that hole? Right here. Then we had two T40s. One here and one here. Now, next step would be to pull the trim for the pump. Now, this piece of felt originally is stapled. We have undone these staples already. Try not to tear them apart if you can. Just fold the felt around and fold open your staple. That way you don't tear up the felt. And if you're really careful, you can actually push these staples back together in the end when you put everything together. Last step for access to the pump later on is removing two more Torx bolts on top here. Those are T30s again, and they hold the frame that holds the pump. And as I mentioned earlier, the pump actually does need to come out in order to refill it. So here's the pump frame, and at this point we can just walk the rubber mounts off the frame and we have the pump exposed. Ta-da! For access to the trunk lid drive cylinders here in the lower left and right corner of the trunk, we need to remove these carpeted panels. Now, in order to remove these panels, we need to get the rear panel here off first, and this little fiber optic unit, I don't know what it is, something related to navigation likely. Removal of these trim pieces is not that difficult. We have put the trunk lid into service position because ultimately this carpeted panel needs to be maneuvered around this hinge part, and the panel is open in the rear. That's why the trunk panel is backwards. We've shown you before, you flip it backwards and then you open it with the blade key into service position. So first thing we do is take out this, let me call it navigation unit, and I may be calling it the wrong thing. There is one trim pad tab holding it in place. That is a rivet style clip. So the clip is in there and it is secured by a pin in it. You first pull the pin out, then you can pull the rivet out. And now we can tilt this unit forward, and we only need to unhook two connectors. There's the fiber optic connector here that has a tab that you push on to release it and pull it off. Then there is the power connector on the bottom that theoretically has a release tab under it, but that tab is hard to get to, so you can instead put a flat screwdriver in here and help yourself pulling this out with a little bit of force. The friction gets the connector over a little tab in there. So we can put this unit aside, and next we work on the rear panel. Now the rear panel has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these square rivet style tabs. The way it works is they have a little recess to get a small flat screwdriver in there, pull out the outer part, and then later the inner part will come up as you pull up the trim panel. We also have two rubber bumpers to remove. You just pull those up. Let me get these additional tabs. That's number 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And now we're down to 2 Torx bolts and 3 more rivet style pins that we'll show you from a different perspective. So on the bottom we have the Torx T15 bolt hidden under a trim cover. Let me unscrew that. Here's my T15. It's a fairly long bolt where later when you replace it you just have to feel your way into exactly where it goes. Same thing on the other side. I've removed that one already. Now we have 3 rivet style tabs here where you get your screwdriver or trim removal tool under the rivet first, pull out the rivet, then the rest will come out by itself. Now I've already removed the other 2 rivet style tabs, one in the center, one on the right side. Now let's see if our panel will come out. All tabs are removed, including the ones up here. Pulling up on this, let's see, this is a little tight. Let's see if the other side is looser. We create a little bit of room where we can grab behind the panel, meaning this there's a cutout in the carpeted panel that allows us to grab behind here and pull this forward. Do the same thing on the other side. Now it's freed up, and we want to free up the bottom so that we can get this out of here. Let's see. I didn't rehearse this. That's why it takes a little bit longer. We free it up on the bottom, and then we either massage things enough so that we get this past the latch, or we could have removed the 2 bolts for the latch. Now the panel is out of the way. I have already disconnected the 2 wires for the light and for the interlock switch, and just for completeness, let me show you again where they go. In here, hope you can see that. I'll turn the panel around so the camera can see it. One switch connector goes here. Is that the wrong one? No, that's it. I just had it in the wrong direction, so there's a little release tab here to push on and pull it out. And the one for the light, conversely, is really easy. Has a big release tab on it. For the carpeted panel, I count 1, 2, 3 rivet style tabs and 1 Torx T15 bolt on the bottom. Forgive me if I missed anything. You'll find out as you take those parts out, but that's what's installed in this car right here, and at this time should work. Let's see how it goes. So here's our T15 bolt, and then we have our 1, 2, 3 rivet style tabs. Let's see. One, 2, and 3. Don't lose the inner parts as the inner rivet flips out. Here we go. I got 3 tabs off. I've pulled the weather stripping up a little bit. Now I can peel this off, and this is something that I haven't rehearsed. Let's see if it comes out easily. We obviously need to hold things loose on the bottom first. Lower my junk aside here, and this loosens up nicely. There's flexibility here where there's a cutout in the carpet anyway, and let's pull up this, trim some more, and see if we can get this past the hinge. There we go. Worked on the first try. I like it when that happens. Same thing on the other side, and you have all the trim removed in the trunk. Ta-da!